Attracting a really high quality woman is not that easy, okay? And you might be surprised to know that your emotions are actually a great indicator of what level of woman you're able to attract in your life. My name's Daniel, and I help guys become men they can be proud of, who attract women that they're proud to be with. And if you want to attract those types of women, it's really important to be able to understand what that looks like on an emotional level, because I would say human interactions and social dynamics are more playing out at the emotional level than on the surface intellectual level. And most men are completely lost when it comes to this, and they don't see this pattern playing out. But with you, I know you're going to grasp it because you're on a deeper journey. If you're watching this channel, you're on a deeper journey of self-discovery and masculine truth and empowerment. And it's great to have you here. And if you're enjoying being a part of it, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button down below to show your appreciation for the reemergence of masculine strength. And let's crack into the video. Okay, so let's talk about how emotions play out and affect the type of woman you're able to attract, because most guys would be, what does my emotions really have to do with it? I thought it has to do with how I'm dressed, how I look, my physical features, what kind of car I have, what kind of house I have, how much money I have in the bank account. And I'm not saying that any of those things are insignificant or do not play a role in it, but I would say your emotions are potentially the primary role in terms of a woman's attraction. So as an example, you could have a man who was really attractive. He had a nice house, nice car, but when he got around women, he became very needy. He became very clingy. Now, even though on the surface level he has all these nice things, the woman will lose attraction for him. She will lose appreciation for this man because of how his emotions are communicating and interconnecting with her emotions. And that's why I often see it. I work with a lot of guys who are very successful, bankers, scientists, doctors, lawyers, architects. And even though compared to society's benchmark of like what does an attractive man look like, he's doing well for himself in life, a lot of these men would really battle with women. And what I came to notice over a long time is that they had very similar emotional patterns. They had very similar emotions to rejection, or maybe even getting a date with a girl, or when things went right or wrong. They had certain emotional experiences, and I saw these patterns again and again. And even a guy would come along who maybe wasn't the most well off, wasn't even that physically attractive, but he was just a lot more emotionally calm and grounded, which is showing a certain level of maturity. And he would be able to attract these girls because there wasn't like this grasping, this needing, this please fill me up type of thing. And I would say men go through three key phases of development in this area. So you kind of got the phase one, which is more of like an adolescent phase, where it's like you're pretty naive. There's also positives to the state as well, because you're very open-hearted, you're very trusting, you're willing to put yourself out there. But at a young age, maybe even in the teenage years, you start to close down this part of yourself. Like for me, there was a couple examples of like girls that I really liked, and I'd really open my heart to these women. But because I hadn't integrated my masculinity and was very naive, thinking like, oh, I like her, that means she likes me a lot as well. And you only have to go through a couple painful rejections with regards to that, that you lose a little bit of that childlike naivety and also that open-heartedness, which I'm going to talk about in part 3. So after you've gone through a couple heartbreaks and you've got your face slammed down in the dirt a couple times, which for the masculine, most people won't really admit this, but men have big hearts. We want to love, we want to share our love with other people. And when we get rejected by women, for most men, it's actually really, really painful experience. But from that pain, it actually births you into the next stage of development. I would still say that like 80 to 85% of men, especially younger men, are stuck at that phase one. And it has nothing to do with age. You could be 40, 45, 50 and still be stuck in this adolescent, naive phase of emotional development. So then when it comes to phase two, because of that pain is a catalyst. It catapults you from that naivety to gain a sense of maturity in the world, have an emotional maturity, as well as more of your outlooks and your beliefs. And not everything is just sunshine and rainbows and fairy tales like you were told when you were a kid. It can be a damaging phase. You kind of get hit by the world a couple times and you're like, wow, I need a couple more tools in my toolkit, because the tools that I have in being this naive young man is not really serving me when it comes to women. It's not really serving me when it comes to attraction. And in really case, I'm just getting dragged through the dirt here over and over and over again. And that's an incredibly painful experience. So phase two, you harden up a bit, you mature up a bit, and you also learn to stop being so naive. You learn to see that there's different things going on in female psychology. That's a big part of it. Phase one, the man doesn't really know female psychology. I remember once, like, one of the girls I had a crush on when I was like 13, we were like driving on a bus on like a school trip and we were really close. Obviously, I secretly liked her. And I was like, would you rather marry someone you were attracted to or your best friend? And like subtly, I was like, well, I'm the best friend. So hopefully she says that. And that's like my way in the door here. And she actually said, no, I'd rather marry someone I was attracted to. And I didn't really understand this for a long time. I didn't really understand, but why? Like, the attraction might fade, but if it's your friend, you can get along for a long time. But to me, that was just a naive understanding of female psychology. I know a lot of relationships where they don't even, maybe like not even the greatest friends, but there's heavy attraction. You obviously want to find a balance. Don't go too far on either side. But phase two, you start to learn more about feminine psychology. And if you're in this, watching this video now, you've probably already started to delve into this area. Wow, what do women actually really get attracted to? And there's a danger when it comes to understanding these things at phase two, because you can become very bitter and resentment. So from the rejections that you get, you start to think like, I'm getting these rejections, like what I'm doing is not working. I feel clueless. Okay, cool. I've got to find out some more information. You start learning about female psychology. Maybe you read the books like The Rational Male by Rollo Tomasi. And even though books like that and others give a good insight into female psychology, if your mind isn't prepared, again, you go into that naive state and become very resentment and bitter. And you'll see guys like this all over the internet, the black pill, where guys are like, screw women, like women are just low class and they'll just leave you for another man with more money. And they take these ideas and concepts and it reinforces their victim identity. They become more of like a victim and and it's just like they start to hate women, and then it's like they have this double-edged sword, because on one hand they want women, they really want to connect with them, they want to get to know women, and on the other hand they're resentful towards women for all the rejection that they've gotten from them and all the times that they've hurt them. And for a man, if you don't clean up that resentment, you'll keep spinning your wheels in the dating game for a long time. And even if you do by some chance end up in a relationship, the chance of actually it being a healthy, fulfilling relationship is very low. So part of the development at stage two is like cleaning up that resentment, cleaning up that victim identity. Because when you're younger, it's very much like the world happens to me. You're not really at the cause, you're really at the effect of the world, at the world. And when you get into phase two, as long as with some of the hardening and not becoming so naive, you also start to step into your power a little bit more. You start to impose your will on the world. You can be effective in the world. And that's probably one of the reasons you're watching this channel. It's like, I want to be effective with women. So how can I learn some things that are going to help me be effective in this regard? And you lose a little bit of that naivety and you start to become more grounded. And in the emotional level, at level one, it's very like the emotions are very up and down. Oh my gosh, he responded to my text. Oh my gosh, he didn't respond to my text. Was my text good enough? And you start doubting your text. The level two, you become a bit more grounded. You're not like this little kid on the emotional roller coaster. It's not saying you don't feel emotions. You're not a robot. You still feel a little high and you still feel a little low, but the swings are not so radical anymore. That's almost a sign of maturity from phase 1 to 2. And there you become more effective, because when your emotions aren't all over the place, you can be more grounded. You can see what is going on in this situation. You're thinking more with your mind instead of getting lost in your emotions all the time. And you can make more effective decisions that lead to the outcome that you want. It's almost like in financial planning. You don't want someone who's super emotional to like FOMO into some stock with your life savings, and then all of a sudden you lose it all. It's like, oh, but I was really feeling that one. This is not really a feeling of like an intuition at a gut level, but it's more of like this emotional kind of feeling, which is very either like immature, almost feminine to some extent. But that almost sounds paradoxical, because when you go to phase 3, it's almost like you return to some of the qualities of the phase 1. You start to open your heart a little bit more, because phase 2, it can be like very hardening and like calculated, and what do I want, and like make sure like I don't get fucked over and all these types of things. But you start to lose the power of your heart. You stop to trust people. And to evolve from phase 2 to phase 3 is almost like that openness again, that openness to trust, the willing to let someone in, the willing to go deep with someone and be vulnerable. That takes a heart opening, but you're almost returning to that childlike state, but you're taking the learning lessons of level 2 into the level 3. So it's a more mature version of that. And why does this apply to the top level of the most beautiful woman? Is because most men are trying to attract those high level women from that phase 1, where it's just like fawning all over her and falling all over her. And the girl doesn't really respond to that. And you can even have these different emotional reactions to different women. Guys will often tell me like, oh yeah, I was talking to this girl, I didn't really find her that attractive, and it was funny, I was just being myself and communicating, and she was like really really into me. What they're saying is like, I was more to a level 2 emotion. I wasn't really emotionally high and low about how this interaction went. I didn't really care too much about this girl's approval. If it went well or didn't go well, I didn't really mind. And that generates attraction in the feminine. But when guys are around a girl that they're really into, they start to project all these crazy qualities on her, that she's like some beautiful creature and her approval means so much to me. And then these huge emotional swings start coming back into it. So don't get me wrong, the message is not to become some emotionless robot, but for most men, they're way too far on the end of like emotional extremes. And like I said, when you get those top level women, those men that those women like to hang out with and date, they don't have those high emotional swings. When you're talking to that girl that you're not that into, and you have not such high and low emotional responses to how that goes, that's almost like how those guys relate to the 9s and 10s, whatever that means for you. So you want to be able to maintain your groundedness, maintain your composure, maintain your masculine centeredness, even when you're with those really high quality girls, because that's what draws them in, that groundedness, that not grasping, like, please approve of me. And then they come in closer. But as soon as you start grasping with all your emotionality, they normally want to take a step back from that. It communicates non-groundedness. And again, don't get this wrong. I'm not saying never show emotion and you should just be this robot. And the worst thing is pretend, suppress. This is what most guys do. They feel all the emotion. Then like, oh, I watched on a YouTube video that Daniel said I shouldn't. So it's like pretending that I don't feel this emotion, which is actually even worse, and it'll manifest itself in way different ways. So think about it. Are you more phase 1, you go on these big emotional highs and lows? Or you phase 2, where you've integrated in a healthy way feminine psychology and how attraction actually really works? So then you can move on to phase 3, which is almost like opening up yourself again from a more developed place, a more mature place that actually leads into a healthy relationship. But that can take a long time. I would say that phase 2 is sometimes months, sometimes years, people just dabble and watch a couple videos on the internet or in some Facebook groups, and they think like, oh, I've developed in phase 2, but they actually haven't really gone on that initiation process as a man. And when I work with guys in my mastermind, that's exactly what we're going through. We're taking them through an initiation from boyhood to manhood, from this immature kind of emotionality to a more grounded masculine, so that they can have the relationships that they really want and do it from a place of groundedment and fulfillment. Okay, so hope you guys enjoyed the video. Share your best takeaway. Drop a like and a comment on the video down below if you enjoyed it. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button as well, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.